That's a cool intro. I haven't seen that yet, so that's the first time I've seen that one. That's great. It's a new one. Man, he must have just been working on that overnight. Hey, John, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah, man, I was just before we get on here, I was saying that you and I have crossed paths many times, and I didn't know who you were until just like probably a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, when we really were starting to like kind of explore a partnership and like work with you guys and that kind of thing. And it was, oh, I know that guy. I've seen him in like multiple events over the last year. I'm like, exactly. It's kind of funny.
All right.
Yeah. So,
Connection now.
So go ahead.
Glad to make the connection now.
Yeah. It happens at some point in time. We keep everybody's building, you know, at one point we're going to get connected when we're in the same space. So it was bound to happen. So why don't you give somebody, all of the people around, just kind of an intro to yourself and Beamable as well, just a quick little overview, and then we'll get into some questions.
Okay. Well, Beamable is a DPIN for the back end of games. So I'll give you some context around what that means and why the heck I, of all people, am doing this. So my background is a combination of developer tools as well as running a game studio. So once upon a time, ran a company called ePrize. It was web development tools. So had to figure out how to make it easy for people to build websites. We took that company public on NASDAQ, grew it to like 300 people. So that's one thing I did. And then I was completely insane and decided that I would build a game studio because games is probably about the hardest business you could possibly be in, I think. But built several successful games. So worked on things that were related to world-renowned television shows, Star Trek, Walking Dead, Game of Thrones. Those are some of the IP that we licensed and then built free-to-play mobile games on. And then while doing that, also got the opportunity to build one of the first blockchain games. So took the Star Trek game and minted 1 million wallets in one of the early gaming chains. So also got exposed to all of the blockchain, what has now come to be called Web3 gaming type issues that come up. So long story short, I had this visceral experience of building games, having to make them successful, scaling them up to millions and millions of players, and all of the tech that goes along with that. But I also built development tools before, and I realized I could have much greater impact on the world by actually solving this problem for everyone than just myself. So about 5 years ago, teamed up with a couple of co-founders who I'd been working with in the past, Ali and Trapper, and we decided to take that tech from Disruptor Beam and build a SaaS business around it. So all of the back-end technology, game servers, multiplayer, social systems, economic systems, all that stuff that modern games now need to launch and operate, we built a platform for that. And since then, we've had over 90 games launch on the platform. In Web3, some of the biggest guys out there, Mythical Games with FIFA Rivals launched on our platform just a few weeks ago. That's just one example. So there's millions of players playing the games on the platform. The next stage of our evolution is we're taking that tech stack out of centralized control where it runs on places like Amazon. And I think we all know about DPIN if you're watching this at all.
Yes.
But
Yeah, I
we're
think so.
creating a community-owned network of those servers. So now the community will own those servers and can earn from them. And what you're doing is essentially helping game studios operate. And this is, just to give you a sense of the scale, game business, about $230 billion a year consumer industry. We think about $35 billion a year is being spent on live services infrastructure, servers, labor, code, all the stuff that goes into running games. Just as one example, Roblox, huge company now. They've got all the engineers they could possibly want. They spent nearly 40% of their top line revenue went out the door on live services. So we're talking over $1 billion just to them. Yeah. So that's just one data point in a very large industry.
Yeah, I love it, man. I mean, the ability to take those expenses, that workload, and give it to the people that one, believe in the project and in gaming in general, and have them be a part of that network, I think is awesome. That's what I love about DPIN. I was excited to see that you guys are doing that kind of stuff too. I've been around the Web3 game ecosystem for about 5 years myself. maybe 6 now. I don't know, but so I learned a lot, cut my teeth with talking to a lot of developers, a lot of game developers, and understanding. I have very little bit of view into it, obviously, compared to a lot of other people, but it opened my eyes to a lot of what is going on. So it's exciting to see that's happening. So. So you guys have nodes that are coming out. That's the DPIN itself. You got a pre-sale, or you have a sale coming up. Why don't you tell me a little bit about the thought process behind what you guys have going on there, and what are those nodes doing for you guys?
Yep. So there's 3 types of nodes in our architecture. There's what we call router nodes that operate essentially as API gateways into the network. There's the worker nodes, which is data center grade compute capacity sufficient to run like big games, like a mythical games we were just talking about with their zillion players on FIFA Rivals. Like they need data center grade capacity. So that's the worker nodes. And the third is what we call checker nodes, and checker nodes have the important job in a decentralized network of making sure that everyone's playing fair. So they do things like check for quality of service, latency, and liveliness of the worker nodes, make sure that people are actually running the worker nodes that they've signed up for. And also that when services are provisioned, when a game requests a whole bunch of compute from worker nodes, that all the records match. Like the game matches what the worker node actually provided, so that no one's playing games with either underpaying or overpaying. So that's what checker nodes do. So it's essentially a consensus network that has that important job in a decentralized network of making sure everyone's playing fair, basically. And the checker nodes are what we're selling in initial fairly limited supply. When we launch on August 4th, we're selling 3,000 of those nodes. And it's really for like our early adopters and community and people who've been pretty close to Beamable to participate in that, because this is the first nodes that we're rolling out. We got to make sure the tech works. We got to make sure everything happens. The sales platforms, all that stuff is in there. So I think we're looking pretty good, but it's alpha nodes, and that means alpha testing a little bit.
Yeah.
So probably we'll work out a few issues along the way. But in exchange for that, it has a fairly generous token reward associated with the initial emissions out of these checker nodes. So trying to make it all make sense for everybody who's signing up to participate early on.
Yeah, I mean, and people look at it like in the crypto ecosystem and Web3 gaming and just different protocols in general. It's been around for 5 years. Everybody should have it figured out. It should be, this is the way it is. Here's your tokenomics. It should be this way and that way. And it's so new, man. Like there's so much that goes into it. And like you said, there's alpha testing that's going to happen. Like what's going to go wrong, because something will go wrong, and where's that going to fall into? And so it's great, get the community that's been around, that believe in it and understand it. It's going to be a lot easier for you guys to be able to fix issues that come around and, and reward those people that are there from the get-go. That's exciting. So yeah. I like it. You guys are deploying your token on Solana, correct?
We are. Yep. We're a Solana project. I think a lot of the really strong DPIN projects are on Solana. I mean, I should say though, we're ultimately blockchain agnostic as a platform. We talked about some of the Web3 games that are running on us. I mentioned Mythical Games. Well, Mythical Games has their own chain, Mythos chain, which is actually a Polkadot parachain. We support them. We support Sui. We support a whole boatload of EVMs. We support Solana. So there's a difference between the game itself and what kind of chains it needs to support, and then the chain that we selected to be essentially the operational infrastructure for the DPIN network. So just like to call out the distinction sometimes, because we don't tell people what chain to use for their game, or for that matter, they don't have to use a chain. But yeah, Solana is where we are deploying. We think it's a great chain for DPIN.
Yeah, man, and the liquidity is there, so it's great, and they have a lot of tech that's being built on there. We operate the same way, so a lot of our viewers are going to understand. We're deploying all of our backend token and NFTs and just the infrastructure itself on AVAX, but we're chain agnostic as well. It's like it doesn't matter where you're at and what you do. If you need compute that wants to be distributed and decentralized, we've got a bunch of devices out there to help you out. So that's what we're doing. I like it. So these are the checker nodes are the first ones that are coming out. Tell me a little bit about your other node ecosystem, because our listeners are going to be excited to kind of hear what that looks like too. And if you can, like a little roadmap of where those are going to come into play down the road.
Yeah, worker nodes are the first that will roll out, and they're going to have a different model around them in that there's more staking associated with them, and there can be people who own and operate the node, and that is distinct from the staking into that node, and will support delegate staking in those nodes as well. And that's just for the reality that in the gaming business, you have to have a lot of security, you have to have super high performance, you have to have access to bandwidth. So checker nodes can run more or less anywhere. You could throw the software on a Raspberry Pi device and you'd be totally fine. Just make sure it stays on, and it'll go and mine network token for verifying transactions. Worker nodes, AAA game studios, people like Mythical Games, they need very high quality, a lot of reliability, and no one tampering with the servers where they're operating. Mm-hmm. So the business model kind of has to be a little bit different there, in that there are people that will own and operate them, but then they can share the staking pool for those nodes with other people. So anybody could stake into those nodes, and there will be quality of service records. You'll see that their uptime has been really good, because you only really want to stake into nodes that are hitting 99.9% SLA kind of situation. So you can see that. We'll have on-chain SLAs, which is part of our network design that we're working towards. But a lot of this documentation around worker nodes, that'll get published over the coming months. But yeah, that'll be a really important part of where we go more in the post-TGE time horizon. TGE, or knock on wood, markets have kind of come back to life. Projects like us hopefully are launching into that, and it'll hold up. Then Q4 looks pretty good for us. But then in Q4 and beyond, that's when worker nodes will roll out with their staking model associated with them.
Nice. And so it's a unique, in the crypto industry, you have real world income that's coming into your economy already. I mean, we love it because that's what we did. We had real income coming in. And so finding these projects that happen, and actually are there to be able to push that into the ecosystem and create that flywheel effect is unique. Most of the time we see, we'll build this thing, it will come. Right. And there's a lot of misconception there. So yeah, I'm excited to see you guys do that. Tell me a little bit about the reasoning behind why you did that part itself. I
think it's a hallmark of DPIN, or at least quality DPIN projects, that you figured out what the demand side is. We can all go and sign up supply all day long and give them tokens. That supply isn't going to stay around for very long if there isn't real business being conducted by the network, and that can really only come from demand, right? So otherwise you're just sort of inflating with no real transactions happening. So the flywheel that we're trying to build with Beamable, first of all, it starts with that demand that we've got from these existing games, and we have quite a bit of control over how we deploy that traffic. Today, it's deployed on a centralized infrastructure in Amazon, but what we've been working on for the last year is opening that wide open so that we have multiple data centers involved, bare metal service providers, all these people that are operating really high quality data center infrastructure. And we have the ability essentially to deploy it to that DePIN network. So that means we have actual work, actual on-chain revenue that we can bring to the table at launch. The neat thing with a vertically oriented DPIN is that I think as a vertical provider, our vertical being games, you actually have a lot more potential to inject additional demand along the way too. So one way we'll grow is add more and more games, and we have a pipeline of games. Like we've got the 90 games that are already there, but of course 8,000 plus individual game developers have signed up for the platform. They're building games. There's more games coming to the platform regularly to continue to drive demand, including more games from some of these big guys like Mythical Games. So that drives demand. Another demand driver we see is it's not just about provisioning compute around the original Beamable tech stack. It's the fact that we're opening that up. We've got a marketplace of, today it's a couple dozen, 2 or 3 dozen other marketplace providers. So there's other software that game developers rely on, like analytics or economy management or private server orchestration and things like that are important to growing game. They can also run on the same network, and that gives us an additional demand driver. And a third, which I think is very unique to vertical DPIN projects, is, well, ultimately there's a lot of overlapping demand even with the end user. One of the things we discovered in building our own community is we created this questing platform, and originally, frankly, it was designed to generate interest around just the DPIN project itself, like people that might want to operate nodes someday. So we created quests to help educate people. But then we started doing these experiments, and we said, well, let's just create some quests for some of the games that were launched on the network and tell people to try them out. And lo and behold, people not only installed, but they were doing actual valuable things like buying the game, wishlisting on Steam, things like that moved the needle for some of these customers. So one of the things we're really excited about is that the questing platform we built isn't going to just, end with TGE. Thanks everybody for participating. Here's your airdrop. No, we're going to continue that, because we could allow game companies, for example, to post a bounty in network tokens in addition to just paying for compute. They could say, hey, here's some tokens, put it on the questing platform and distribute that to people that then help them evangelize the game. So there's a lot of things I think that are interesting in the DPIN flywheel that with a vertical network and in games in particular, we can drive that demand. But that's kind of how we're thinking about growing this thing. But it starts with the fact that the games are already there too.
Yeah, you have to start with that. You have to start with that base, right? And I think that's awesome. And there's multitude of opportunities, just like you said, and they come up out of places of whether it's, you're talking on a stream with somebody and you're like, oh, I can see that's going to work out here. Or it's just a magical thing like you guys did, with your quest. And it's like, oh, I see that can work out here. I know in the beginning, when I first heard about you guys, I passed your name along to a few different game developers, like kind of indie game developers that were out there, and they were looking into you. I haven't followed up to see if they signed up with you guys, but it's a need for sure. Like there's so many people come into developing games and just think it's, oh, I only need to make the game this start, and there's just so much that goes on that back end. That's what I learned through my kind of brief history in the gaming ecosystem. So, and that's where I cut my teeth. It was in the game. On the node side, was in the Web3 gaming industry. That's what basically essentially started DeEEP. Was I bought a whole bunch of nodes, for Gala back in the day, and I needed to run them, and so then everybody else did too. So guess what? I started a NAS, and that people started paying money to run all their nodes, and then we opened it up to other things, and it's like, hey, we're running this on Amazon. Let's buy our own hardware. So we bought our own hardware. We're like, this sucks too. Let's develop a DPIN network with real hardware that people can buy, put in their homes. We have, in my opinion, some of the best security that you're going to get. Real world security. My team's cracked. Like they're insane. So like the amount of work and effort they put into these devices and the software is great. So same thing. It's just like all these little things just kind of pop up and they grow, and you see there's so much value. It's not just one thing that comes out of it. Now you have this community too that's built in. So I'm excited. What's you got TGE that's going to come later on in fall time. Yep. I shouldn't say later fall, but in fall. And token's going to be launched. I know you guys have some staking protocols that are going in. Are you guys going to be pushing a lot of other features to utilize that token from the get-go, or what's your kind of plan right out the gate? Or can you even say some things like along those lines?
Yeah, I think let's start with the fundamentals of DPIN, because you mentioned earlier how it's this very unique event within crypto to have things that are essentially revenue generating. DPIN has to be inherently revenue generating for it to work and for it to grow, right? And DPIN, if it's built right and it's not just one of these, purely aspirational ideas of wouldn't the world be better if we changed everything. Like DPIN, if you look at just DPIN projects that are getting utilized, they're solving a real demand that already exists, not in Web3, but in Web2. That's kind of what's interesting about DPIN.
Mm-hmm.
Supply side, the tokenization, all of that is the crypto native side, but the demand side does not need to be. And in fact, I think it's held back if it's geared towards like a crypto native audience. So
yeah,
customers are game studios. We don't care if they're Web3 or Web2. They all need compute. Web3 game studios have some specific needs around blockchain integration and stuff like that. Web2 games, free-to-play game studios have unique needs around like app store, purchase receipt verification and things like that. So like you have these little differences across different kinds of games depending on their business model, but at their core, so much of game operations are actually identical regardless of where you go.
Yeah.
So because we service that demand, there's revenue to tap into. And really what that means is the fundamental transaction that happens on Beamable is matching demand to supply. So if you're a game and you need to scale up for more players, you have a real-time need to provision servers or microservice capacity to actually run the game. And if you can't service that capacity, players aren't going to be playing your game. Like you're going to get the message in your game saying, sorry, the servers are down, which is the nightmare of any game operator, because then you can't generate any revenue whatsoever while that's going on. So the network looks at what's the game studio willing to pay for services? What are people that are operating servers pricing it at? So we don't try to dictate to the worker node operators, here's what you got to sell it for, because we want to have a market-based economy where people can internalize their own cost structures around their capex and their energy costs, and then price according to what the market will bear and drive better economics for the customer.
Love it.
So that's the basic transaction. The protocol design is that it will take a tiny network, so that you'll be able to pay in two ways, native token or stables. And if you pay in stablecoin, it'll be a super low network fee. And if you pay in stable, it's a higher network fee. Comparable, we haven't fixed those numbers yet, but comparables are like in Akash, where it's like, I think they're like 2 or 2.5% network fee for native and 20% for stables. So then what does that do? Then essentially that network fee represents a value capture that the network itself can do, which, can be used to reduce the circulating supply of tokens, drive value accrual.
Mm-hmm.
More importantly, it essentially becomes a payment system where the real beneficiary of the revenue should be the node operators, right? It shouldn't be out to the foundation. It should be, you're running a worker node. We think you probably should get 96, 97, 98% of the transaction. And the protocol is just there to facilitate getting connected to the people who need that demand. And that little piece, that'll be used for things like paying for checker node operations to compensate them for their piece, to maybe do token buybacks and things like that to help everybody out over time.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. Like the idea of, again, it's funny how parallel, like we're both working on like in tokenomics and the token drop at TGE and stuff, is we don't plan on doing any big centralized exchange kind of ecosystems, because we want the token to do what it's supposed to do. We have tokens going to these device operators, and it needs to come out in the ecosystem, and we have a flywheel that is going to be used in already. And it's like, it's a novel concept in Web3, but that's how businesses work. You have to have this, flywheel in your business. Otherwise you don't have something that's going to work out. And so it's exciting to see other people build it that way and like go down that route and really see an economic value with everything that and how that economy can actually grow and expand and turn into what it needs to be. So awesome.
And I just love the economic structure of this business. So if you look at sort of the old world way of doing things, where you have a core business makes money or it loses money, and then you've got this derivative of that, which is essentially like ownership, stock ownership of it. And then people try to calculate what the future earnings potential to ultimately be distributed to those owners are and agree on a market price for equity. It's fine. Like, there's plenty of reasons to have that for likely the vast majority of businesses. But when you can identify something which can be protocol driven and the revenue is essentially on chain and decentralized, where you've got people able to take demand, speak for it, provision it from the people who directly provide the supply. The interesting thing is that all of the people in that ecosystem, whether you're on demand or supply or just a token holder or you're staking or any of the other economic actors in that, like we talked about some of the other demand drivers we see emerging over time, you're actually a lot closer to the core business than you can ever be with like an equity ownership of a company. And we don't think, certainly the token is purely utilitarian in our case, but you're actually closer to like that earnings, that direct payment infrastructure. You are directly providing the service and getting paid for the service you are offering. And I think that's a really interesting model that is going to transform the world in the coming years. And to me, DePIN is the emerging category in crypto generally, which, it is the real business of crypto. In some ways, Bitcoin was the original DePIN, by the way. And
right. Yeah. 100%.
Run a server, mine a token, except there, you're mining a token just for running cryptographic puzzles, basically, to mine more token. And because of the magic of Bitcoin, people have given it a lot of value over time. But with DePIN, you're running machines again, but they're doing something that people need.
Yes. And I love Bitcoin. Like that's how I cut my teeth in crypto. Like I understood, like I love the concept of it, but and people are going to hate on me for this, is Bitcoin started with hopes and dreams, and that's kind of what drove the crypto ecosystem of like, hey, create a token, throw it out there, see what it could do. Oh, this is the next Bitcoin. This one's going to kill Bitcoin. It's like it's a once in a lifetime thing that happened with Bitcoin and how it came about, and the people that saw the value and were able to, drive that into where we're currently at now with like the governments and regulations and stuff that are very positive. Again, DePIN, I think, in a lot of these protocols, much like you guys itself, you're bringing in the value already, and there's not a hope and dream. You have a business that's working, and it's now going to be more efficient and more fair throughout, I believe. And so it's kind of this next evolution. Again, I'm going to get hated by those Bitcoin lovers, but I love Bitcoin myself too. But I think there's just the evolution there, and I fully believe it. John, I know you're going to have to go to another call here soon. I want you to kind of give me some call to action for some people here. Let them know where they can find you and Beamable and all that stuff. And we're going to post all that stuff in here too. But just kind of get a little call to action for people. I know you guys got some fun, cool stuff coming up.
I mean, I'm Radoff, JRADOFF on X. So follow me there. We've got Beamable Network on X. Definitely follow both of us. The Alpha Node sales happening Monday, August 4th. So it's coming really fast. You got to get whitelisted for it. So the best way to do that is just be in a community like yours that's kind of got a connection into us and get whitelisted that way, or just drop a DM to Beamable Network on X. They can arrange, if you think you should be in the whitelist, we can probably make it happen. So just connect with them. But like I said, it's a pretty limited supply. This isn't one of those node sales where we're trying to blow it out and sell tens of millions of dollars of these things. Like it's very small. It's 3,000 nodes for $350 each. It was intentional. I actually think that some of the people who have done that have kind of cratered the economics of their network prematurely. So we're trying to be a little bit, and we've raised capital. We've raised 23 million of venture capital. Bitcraft led our Series A. So like we have capital. We want to make sure that as we continue to build out the network, it's just done thoughtfully, and hence like we're keeping the supply limited on this initial set of nodes, and really want it to be about the community and people who care about what we're building and are also going to kind of be there on the journey with us as we probably hit a couple bumps in the road too, frankly.
It'll happen. It's part of business. It's part of crypto. It's part of everything that we see. But it's how we respond to those bumps in the road and move forward. And again, I love what you guys are doing. I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy. You're all over the place. So all the community that's going to listen to this is going to appreciate a little bit more information. And I wish you guys well. And we're going to do some fun things together.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me here.
Awesome. Take care, man.